Welcome to Paris Good Food and Wine. I'm Paige Donner, the host and producer. This food and wine show is being brought to you directly from Paris, France. Here, we give you a taste of this delicious world with all its colorful and diverse personalities that make up the Paris culinary landscape. So, sit back and relax and enjoy Paris Good Food and Wine. Welcome to Paris Good Food and Wine. I'm Paige Donner, the host and producer. This food and wine show is being brought to you directly from Paris, France. Here, we give you a taste of this delicious world with all its colorful and diverse personalities that make up the Paris culinary landscape. So, sit back and relax and enjoy Paris Good Food and Wine. For this special summer edition of Paris Good Food and Wine, I've drawn from our archives of the show when it first started out and was called World of Wine. That aired in 2014. For this special summer edition of Paris Good Food and Wine, I've strung together several of those episodes which focus on the Loire Valley wines. Here, you'll be listening to episodes that go in depth into Loire Valley reds, whites, sweet wines, and also the sparkling wines that come from the region. Of course, the Loire Valley is exceedingly accessible from Paris, and one of France's most prestigious and famous chateaux, the Chateau Chambord, is of course located in the Loire Valley region. So enjoy, and hopefully enjoy with a glass of Loire Valley wines. This is the World of Wine, your weekly update on news from the world of wine in Paris.
I love Paris.
For the next several weeks, World of Wine is taking a deep dive into Loire Valley wines. The catchphrase for Loire wines is "Great wine, no attitude." Known as the Garden of France because of its plentiful fresh produce, the Loire Valley also boasts wonderful vineyards that stretch from Orléans all the way to Nantes, just near the Atlantic coast. The wines of the Loire Valley are perfect accompaniment to food, especially the simple French home cooking that the Loire Valley is known for. Many of us cherish the Loire Valley for its famous chateaux, and of course it was once home to the kings and aristocracy of France. It is these same kings and aristocrats who first very much enjoyed these light, fresh, fruity, and food-friendly Loire Valley wines. Since the Loire produces reds, whites, rosés, sweet wines, and sparkling wines, we'll be looking at these individually in separate upcoming episodes of World of Wine. Today we're looking at red wines from the Loire. The Loire Valley is home to Cabernet Franc. Cabernet Franc achieves its highest expression in the Loire Valley, where it's used as a primary varietal and seldom for blending. Great expressions of Cabernet Franc wines are found from the appellations of Chinon, Bourgogne, Saint-Nicolas de Bourgogne, Saumur, Saumur-Champigny, and Anjou. Refreshing and fruity describes these wines. These pair well with grilled or roast meat. The richer ones go well with roast leg of lamb, and the lighter ones, slightly chilled, are ideal for summer barbecues or salty dishes, such as ham. One characteristic of Loire Valley wines is that they tend to be lighter and fresher, so a Cabernet Franc from the Loire Valley has not much in common with a Cab Franc from Bordeaux or Napa. Cab Franc is the most important red grape in the Anjou-Saumur and Touraine regions of the Loire Valley. It's good to keep in mind that Loire wines are for drinking, as opposed to collecting. Most are ready to drink from a year to 3 after harvest. These are wines to enjoy and to keep on hand at home for meals and for when company comes calling. The elegance and finesse of these wines means they don't compete with or overpower food, but rather complement and enhance it. Pinot Noir is another red varietal cultivated in the Loire. Sancerre is one of the Loire Valley's most famous and most exported wines. Sancerre reds are made from Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir is also the grape used in the wines from the Manitou Salon and Châteaumeillon AOCs. These tend to be lighter red wines. They pair nicely with grilled foods and goat cheese, especially the goat cheese from the Loire Valley. A few recommendations from La Revue de Vin de France, France's well-respected wine magazine. Domaine Pellet, Manitou Salon, Le Carroir, 2012. Brendan Tracy, Vin de France, Gorge Sèche, 2012. Domaine de Clos de l'Alu, Vin de France, Espérance, 2012. La Porte Saint-Jean, Sommer Champigny, Les Beaugrands, 2011. Complice de Loire, Bourgogne, Les Colis, 2011. Domaine Lecu, Muscadet, Ange, 2012. Good to note here that it's unusual to find a red from Muscadet, and a Pinot Noir at that. Keywords for Loire Valley Reds: affordable, drinkable, enjoyable. That's all for the World of Wine this week. I'm Paige Donner.
Every moment of the year.
This is the World of Wine, your weekly update on news from the world of wine in Paris.
I love Paris.
This week we're looking at rosé wines from the Loire Valley. The wines of the Loire Valley are perfect accompaniment to food, especially the simple French home cooking that the Loire Valley is famous for. Many of us know the Loire Valley for its historic chateaux. It was once home to the kings and aristocracy of France, and it is these same kings and aristocrats who first very much enjoyed these light, fresh, fruity, and food-friendly Loire Valley wines. Known as the Garden of France because of its plentiful fresh produce, the Loire Valley boasts wonderful vineyards that stretch from Orléans all the way to Nantes, just near the Atlantic coast. A good catchphrase to remember Loire Valley wines by is, "Great wine, no attitude." The rosés of the Loire Valley are thought of as perfect summer companions to barbecues and picnics. But even when the weather is still fresh outside, they accompany plates of charcuterie and cheeses and some desserts quite nicely as well. A couple easy ones to remember are Rosé d'Anjou and Rosé de Loire. A few more to look for are the rosés from the appellations of Sancerre, Saint-Nicolas de Bourgogne, and Touraine. The appellations of Anjou and Touraine produce a wide variety of wines for everyday drinking. Whether red, white, or rosé, there are few better wines to buy in quantity and keep on hand for whenever you want a bottle of good, easy wine for a simple dinner at home. The rosés from Anjou or Saint-Nicolas de Bourgogne will be Cabernet Franc based, while the rosés from Sancerre will be, of course, primarily Pinot Noir based, with a small amount being made from Gamay and Pinot Gris. Unlike Provence with its olives and herbs, Normandy with its apples and cream, or Alsace with its sauerkraut and Munster cheese, the Loire Valley is not associated with particular dishes or flavors, but with the superb quality of its produce. This is the motherland of classic French simple home cooking, and the wines of the Loire Valley are table wines par excellence. The Loire Valley offers a huge variety of styles, all of which have in common finesse, elegance, lively fruit, and refreshing acidity. The rosés from Anjou and Saumur are dry or slightly sweet, as well as delicate or flavorful. They are suitable for any occasion when drunk well chilled. The rosés from the Centre Loire, where Sancerre is located, are highly elegant, offering fine aromas reminiscent of autumn fruits. Rosés from Touraine are recognizable by their beautiful translucent colors. These wines complement food rather than overpower it. They are also perfect bottles to have on hand to offer guests when entertaining at home. That's all for the World of Wine this week. I'm Paige Donner. Join us again next week for the World of Wine.
Every moment of the year.
This is the World of Wine, your weekly update on news from the world of wine in Paris.
I love Paris.
Je vis de la terre, je le dis aux fleurs, au lac de vapeur, au ciel de toutes les...
The Loire is France's third largest wine growing region. It stretches from the Atlantic coast, where Nantes is located, all the way to the center region where Blois and Orléans can be found. This, World of Wine's third installment in our Loire Valley wine series, focuses on the Loire's sweet wines. From the Loire Valley, you will find some of the world's best dessert wines. They are all made from Chenin Blanc. Some are labeled Moelleux, which means moderately or comfortably sweet. Others are Liquoreux and are very sweet. They can be enjoyed as an aperitif at the beginning of a meal or as the final glass of wine. Frequent accompaniments are foie gras, blue cheeses, and some desserts. Vouvraye's Domaine Huet was founded by the Huet family in 1928 when they fell in love with a property in this village just near Tours called Le Haut-Lieu. Nearly 9 decades later, the sweet wines produced from their 3 vineyards are both reputable and cherished. The domain is also one of the earliest adopters of biodynamic viticulture in France. Domaine Huet considers themselves caretakers of the land while preserving the sweet wine traditions of the Loire. A couple of tasting notes. Vouvray Moelleux Le Haut-Lieu 2009. At 53 grams of sugar, it is a generous wine, offering pleasure now, but with a massive aging potential of at least 30 to 40 years. Vouvray Moelleux Le Mont 2003. Le Mont is one of the most cherished vineyards in the Vouvray appellation. It provides a unique expression to the Chenin Blanc varietal. This wine is best described as a young man, balanced, fresh, and very open. It has 75 grams of sugar and is supported by a solid structure. The Loire Valley in general is an area of equilibrium, a meeting point between north and south, freshness and sophistication, art and literature, the traditional and the modern. The Loire boasts the widest variety of wines to be found anywhere in France. This is thanks to its temperate climate and a range of rich terroirs. The balance can be quite delightful.
Ton soleil réchauffe mon cœur au ciel de toutes les couleurs. Ton soleil réchauffe mon cœur.
That's all for the World of Wine this week. I'm Paige Donner. Join us again next week for the World of Wine.
Every moment of the year.
Known as the Region of Kings, the Loire Valley was added to the UNESCO World Heritage List for the quality of its architectural, cultural, and historical heritage. The AOC wines of Anjou and Touraine, as well as Nantes and Saumur, can all lay proud claim to the Loire's historical and cultural heritage. For this episode of World of Wine, we're looking only at still white wines from the Loire. I'll be focusing on 2 main regions of the Loire, the appellation of Vouvray, which is near the city of Tours, and the second area will be the vineyards around Angers, specifically the appellations of Anjou and the very particular Savenière. The appellation of Vouvray near the city of Tours allows for only Chenin Blanc to be used for their AOC white wines. Chenin Blanc is also called Pinot de Loire by the locals. Chenin Blanc has been growing in the region since the 4th century. About 40% of the harvest is made into still wine, the rest into sparkling. Vouvray wines are famous for their balance between fruit and acidity. Wines are bottled soon after fermentation and aged in the bottle. The wines can range from elegant and fruity to mineral and spicy, depending on the characteristics of the soil and other aspects of terroir. Dry and demi-sec Vouvray pair well with shellfish, especially those that are slightly sweet, such as scallops and lobster. It also pairs well with white meats. For my first example of an emblematic Vouvray, I'll turn to Domaine de la Croix de Vancoeur, a domain in the village of Chancey, between Tours and Amboise, so firmly rooted in the chateau-rich region of Touraine. Laurent Bonneau owns and cultivates his 8 hectares of Chenin Blanc on his 2 vineyards named Le Boucher and Le Derronnière. His guiding principle is respect for nature. He also adds that Chenin is a grape that expresses itself differently according to the nuances of its terroir. His still dry wines he makes primarily from his Le Boucher 45-year-old vines. As an example, Le Boucher 2010 Demi-Sec. Full-bodied and elegant, this is a wine with notes of yellow fruits. Pair with roast fowl and grilled fish. It also drinks well as an apéritif wine. Now, let's take a look at Le Clos de la Meslerie, a wine made by Peter Hahn, also in Vouvray. His estate is about 15 kilometers outside Tours. Peter adopted France as his home after escaping a life of high finance in his native USA. He bought the estate, which dates back to the 1600s, in 2002, with the firm conviction that good friends, good food, and good wine are the best balm for the soul. Wine is a product of place, time, and people, he says. His other firm conviction is that simple and natural is better, and thus he elaborates a natural wine. I have a bee in my bonnet about the use of chemicals and other additives in the vines, he likes to say. The Revue de Vin de France called Le Clos de la Meslerie 2011 an exceptional wine. I have to agree. It leaves the lingering impression that it's a dry wine, though the residual sugar is significant, still it's balanced by the wine's lively acidity and minerality. Pair this with antipasti, baked stuffed tomatoes with ricotta, or even chicken roasted in a mustard tarragon sauce. Serve not too chilled, about 13 degrees Celsius is perfect. At this temperature, the wine is noticeably more present. Traveling west now, along the Loire, we come to the city of Angers. Around Angers are many gorgeous vineyards and wine appellations, including Anjou. Another is the celebrated and very particular Savennières. Great wine writers and critics such as Pierre Casamayor and Eric Asimov delight in writing about Savennières, an appellation that produces what has been called a red wine masquerading as a white. For a classic example of Savennières, we'll take a look at Château Souchery. The Anjou AOC wine estate was once the property of the Duke of Brissac family. It was purchased in 2007 by the Bégueneau family, who guides this winemaking chateau today. Roger-Francois Bégueneau says that he wants his wine estate to be a place where wine is made in perfect harmony with nature, a place to live and a place to share. In the New York Times in January, Asimov wrote that, if you're looking for a winter weight white wine, one that's substantial enough to warm the insides, yet elegant enough to dance intimately with many different foods, I've got a name for you, Savennières. It's also been called one of the fascinating pinnacles of Chenin Blanc performance on Loire schist. The Clos de Perrières 2011, made by Château Souchery, was selected by several Michelin-starred restaurants in Paris, including Georges V, Guy Savoy, and Pavillon Le Doyen. This is 100% Chenin Blanc by AOC regulation. The nose opens to flowers, then anise, followed by exotic fruits. In the silken textured palate, you'll find minerality, quince, and white peach with an iodine finish. If these intensely aromatic and complicated wines of Savennières intrigue you to discover more, other domains to look for are Nicolas Joly and Domaine aux Moines, to name just a few. Savennières wines can keep and improve for 10 to 15 years and even more. The wines pair well with riverfish and beurre blanc, spiny lobster, poultry in creamy mushroom sauce, perch pike with lime flower butter, and even a truffled boudin blanc. That's all for the World of Wine this week. I'm Paige Donner. Join us again next week on WRP for the World of Wine.
Every moment of the year.
Le Fine Boule de la Loire. That's the registered trademark name for sparkling wines that are made in the Loire Valley. And could there be any more evocative or appropriate name for these sparkling wines than Le Fine Boule, the literal translation of which is tiny bubbles? Sparkling wines from the Loire are fragrant, refreshing, delicate, and effervescent. As a bubbly, these wines are elegant enough to toast at celebrations and festive occasions, as well as approachable and affordable enough to enjoy at Sunday brunch or at home with loved ones at the end of a workday. 6 appellations in the Loire are allowed to use the Fine Boule designation. All are within the regions of Anjou, Saumur, and Touraine. And although the composition of the wine may vary among the appellations, all are made according to the rigorous standards that govern the méthode traditionnelle, which is also the method used in Champagne. The 6 appellations allowed to use the Fine Boule designation are Saumur Brut, the largest and most well-known of the sparkling producing regions of the Loire, Crémant de Loire, close runner-up in terms of wide appeal and recognition, Vouvray, second in terms of volume of production, and Touraine Mousseau, And then there are the relatively much smaller appellations of Montlouis-sur-Loire and Anjou-Mousseau. The most distinctive sparkling wines made in the Loire are those made with the grapes that characterize the region. That would be Chenin Blanc and Cabernet Franc, of course. The sparkling wines from Vouvray and Montlouis-sur-Loire are made exclusively from Chenin Blanc. Other appellations can blend in Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, and even other grapes. The wines range from brut, so fully dry, to demi-sec. But in all of them, you'll find that same balance between fruit and acidity that demonstrate the best characteristics of Loire Valley wines. And it's the fruitiness of these wines, more pronounced than in other effervescent wines from France, that make them well suited for pairing with a meal. Fresh fruity aromas is what you'll find with Loire Valley sparkling wines. Chateau Souchery makes a delightful Crémant de Loire Brut from 100% Chardonnay, a delicate and pure nose of white flowers and fruit with that nice hint of brioche which belies its 2 years of aging. On the palate, white fruits, good acidity, harmonious and fresh. This pairs well with shellfish, fish and beurre blanc, especially the white wine and butter sauce characteristic of the Loire Valley that's often made with one of their sparklings. Also nice accompaniment to some cheeses such as a Beaufort or a Comté. Generally speaking, in a Crémant de Loire, you'll find the dominant grape blend of Chenin Blanc, though they are free to use other grapes. However, harvest must be by hand, and for the Crémant de Loire it must age a minimum of 1 year before release. Now, to turn to Touraine. Some of the Loire's most delicious sparkling wines come from Vouvray, which of course is in Touraine. Sparklings from Vouvray show all the harmonious balance between fruit and acidity that is characteristic of white wines from this mild climate, but also with a nod to a more pronounced flavor of minerals. Again, these are as excellent to enjoy with a meal as they are alone as an apéritif. The 2008 Cuvée Premium, produced by Domaine La Croix de Vancoeur, is a Vouvray sparkling that gives notes of vanillaed pineapple, peach compote, and a whiff of spice cake on the nose. The mouth is brioche and yellow peaches. Serve this wine at 8 degrees Celsius as apéritif. You can even cellar this for 2 to 3 years. And remember, many of the Fine Bull from the Loire Valley can be found for under 20 euros, which make them a very affordable and high-quality sparkling wine choice. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Paris Good Food and Wine. A big thank you to all who helped make this show possible, and especially a grand merci beaucoup from me, your host and producer, Paige Donner. You can find this and past episodes of Paris Good Food and Wine on iTunes. And remember to follow us on Twitter at Paris Food Wine and like us on Facebook at Paris Food and Wine.